Hi, everyone, and welcome to our WordPress Classic training. Today, we'll be going over some of the basics of updating your WordPress website. We'll be using our own website as a demo, so just keep in mind that everyone's site is a little bit different. Some things may not look exactly like they do on your own website. We'll get started from the beginning, which is logging into your site. You will go to your own website URL and then add site login to the end of that. Here, you will be able to enter your username and your password. And then once those are entered, click Login. Every time you log in, you will first see this dashboard page. This will give you a welcome message and an overview of some of the most common things that you want to see right away when you log into your site. Before we get started, though, I'd like to show you how to update your profile and your password. And you can do that by on the top right-hand corner, hover over where it says Howdy in your name, and then click Edit Profile. On this page, there's going to be a lot of information, way more fields than you'll ever need to even bother with. So I'll just bring you down to the most common things you will ever have to update. One may be your last name. You can just go to the last name field, highlight that, and start typing in a new last name. Your email may change, so you can change that here. And if you scroll down, there will be one more thing, which is updating your password. And so it just says new password. Click the set new password button. It will automatically create a really strong password for you. I recommend that you set it to something that's strong, but that you can also remember. Once you've set that, make sure that you scroll down just a little bit further and click the blue update profile button. If you don't do that, it won't save your changes. Since I don't actually want to change my password, I'm actually just going to go back to the dashboard. To do that, I just went to the left-hand side menu and clicked dashboard. Again, this is the same page that we saw right away once we logged in. It gives us a welcome message. And what this does is going to tell you where you can go for tutorials on certain things for your website. By clicking any of these click here links, it'll bring you to our training website for those details. It'll give you some quick tips, maybe some styling tips for your website, then likely some sort of ideal image size, whether it be if you're a homepage slideshow, maybe some featured images for your blog posts, and so on. Before I continue with this, I'm going to show you that there's a screen options button at the top of the page. When you click to open that, it'll expand some more options for you. What these are the widgets that we're seeing here. So when I click and drag, I'm calling that a widget. So Gravity Forms widget, a welcome to the Vivid Image Playground widget. When I check any of these or uncheck any of these, it's going to add or subtract them from the dashboard. You can customize this however you want. It's just personal preference. A lot of people like to leave the welcome message, maybe Gravity Forms to know how many forms have been submitted. I'm going to turn off the activity block. I'm going to leave this vivid image info block, and here are just some buttons to click to contact us for more information or update your billing details, anything like that. I'm going to close up the screen options. You may have noticed when I was clicking and dragging to show you the certain widgets and blocks that I was playing with here, you can actually move them around wherever you would like them to go. It's just, again, another personal preference thing. This has nothing to do with the front end of your website. This is just where you can access some details that as an editor you may want to see. In this Gravity Forms widget that I'm looking at, it's going to list you all the forms that you have on your site, and it will tell you how many are unread, how many total you have. And if you want to hop in right to that Gravity form that you have set up, you can click on the link and it will bring you right there. Or you can click the View All Forms button at the bottom of that block. Today, I'd really like to get into working on editing pages, posts, your media library, whereas all your PDFs and images live, editing forms, and editing your menu. I would like to start with pages and posts first because these are likely the most common items that you'll be editing. I will first explain the difference between the two. So on the left-hand side menu, you'll see pages and you'll see posts. Those are the two different sections that you can access those. And I'm going to show you on the front end of our own site to kind of explain what that is. So basically any page on your site that all traffic is likely going to, and they're like the main staple pages of content that you want people to see. Like maybe it's an about page or a contact page or just a main service page. Those are all pages. If you have a blog or news section on your site, it's more likely that you have posts. So for example, on our site, we have what's called a blog, and there's a bunch of different links and snippets of text that lead to blog posts. So that's where your posts live, and that's what you would be editing as a post. Now that I'm back to the dashboard of the website, we'll actually hop into editing pages. And you can do that again by navigating to the menu on the left-hand side of the page and clicking pages. Once you click that, you will see a long list or maybe a short list, depending on the size of your site, of blue links. And these are the titles of all the different pages on your site. If you have a specific page in mind and you don't see it on this first page here, you can click this arrow to go to the next page. Or above that, there's going to be a box that you can type in text of a page and then click search pages, and it will bring up all the pages that reference that phrase. So like with many things in WordPress, there's going to be multiple ways that you can achieve the same outcome or get to the same spot. So for example, if I wanted to edit the images page, I could simply click on images. Below that, it says edit. Both of those links do the same exact thing. It takes you to the same spot to edit the page. You'll see there's a couple other options here, one of them being trash, and that would completely delete your page. And view is a common one, so you can see what it looks like on the front end of the site. Just going to click into a page first so you can see what it looks like. I'm actually going to go into a page called buttons. So I'm searching for that in the search bar. I'm going to click buttons, and then it's going to bring me to the back end of this page. This message up here you can ignore. This is simply because I did not save what I was just working on, and I'll show you how to avoid doing that. So this buttons text here is the title of the page. Below that is called the permalink, and that's the link of this page. So on the front end, if a user were to navigate there, this is what they would type in or click a link to get there. Here are some buttons and icons for editing and styling your content. And then here is the editor section where you can click and make your edits. On the right-hand side, there's going to be a couple of options for you. This is the publish block. And in here, it's going to allow you to preview changes, which is a best practice. As you're editing the page, click the preview changes button before you update. I'm going to show you that quickly what that does. Here, that's just going to load an example of what that page is going to look like exactly on the front end before you update it, just because it's not exactly what you are seeing here. There is going to be a status. And if it's a live site, it'll say published. I'm going to click edit. If it says draft, that means it's not published. And people on the front end that is not an editor, like a regular user, will not be able to see it. Also, if I were to change that from published to draft, like I just did now, and click update, that would take that page down and people would not be able to see that on the front end. There's also a section that says when it was published, so you can see when that page was published and made live. We'll circle back to this with posts because there's going to be a way that you can schedule them. There's also an option to move to trash, and that would completely delete your page. Please note that if you delete a page that was already live, that you should contact Vivid Image to put in a redirect, because what you're doing is creating a 404 error for people that are still trying to access an old URL, or even if Google has indexed the old URL, you don't want people ending up on a 404 page. So Vivid Image can put in a redirect for you to go to the new page that is its replacement. If it's never been live, there's no worry about putting in a redirect. You can just move it to trash. And then the blue update button is when you are done making your changes, you're going to click update, and then it will push those changes live. When making edits, it might be something as simple as clicking and typing and clicking the blue update button. So for example, if all I wanted to do on this page was update this headline to say text at the end, you can simply hit update and then it will show on the front end. Again, best practice, preview that before you make that change. And you can see what it's going to look like just to make sure you're not missing anything. And then I would click the blue update button. So it may be very easy and quick for you to make a text edit. There could be more complicated things like adding in buttons, which we'll get into later, and adding in images and forms, but it can be quite simple depending on the edit that you're making. As you can see, when I'm clicked here, you may have noticed that this little box is changing what it's saying. So if I click below that, you see it changes to paragraph. This is a heading. This is a heading. And anything else is going to come up as a paragraph. Headings are what are put in place to help segment your content on your page to make it easier for people and search engines to read. Most people will be using H1 through H3, maybe 4, and less commonly using a heading 6. So first of all, I recommend never using a heading 1 because that is already what your page title is. The most commonly used is going to be your H2. So when you start a page, if you're going to put a heading above that, make that an H2. If I wanted to put a subheading below that, I would return, highlight that text, change that to H3 because it's a hierarchy. I'm going to choose the one below that, and it makes that text a little bit smaller and gives it a subheading before the paragraph text. Below this, you can see this is a heading 4, another heading 4, heading 3. It just depends on how you're divvying up your content on your page, but try to follow the hierarchy and never start with an H6. I'm going to remove this heading. There are other options in this editor that I actually recommend either never using or very sparingly using them. And that would be the bold and italicize, and then the text color. So text color, I really never recommend using this unless there's something special about your site that we told you that you should use it. I would just stay away from using this text color because everything by default is already programmed to look a certain way. And once you start adding colors, it can add to confusion of your site. The same thing kind of goes for bolding and italicizing. These would be less strict on and you could maybe use more often, but please only use them when you really think it's going to be helpful to a user, because if you're using bold, sometimes that's kind of a signifier to people that it's a link. Italicized, depending on the font, can sometimes be hard to read. So try to stick to just using regular paragraph text and headings. You do have the ability to add bulleted lists. So if I were to return here and type item 1, item 2, item 3, and highlight those and click bulleted list. You can see that it indents it and puts a little icon next to it to show you that these are list items. I can also change that to a numbered list. Depending on your website, you may have what's called a styled block quote, and that would be if you wanted to add in a quote from a customer or a testimonial, you can give it some extra styling. So I'm going to just copy this text here, pretend that this is a quote. I'll highlight that and click the block quote icon. And for us, it changes that text to gray with an orange little indentation there. And I'll show you on the front end by clicking preview changes what that looks like. And so here's my numbered list, and here's my block quote. And to remove something, you just simply highlight and click delete on your keyboard. So it's quite similar to a Word document or Google Doc. As you can see, when I clicked the preview changes, another thing you may have noticed is that you can see buttons here, these gray buttons and an orange button, but you can't really tell that they're buttons on the back end. And that's because it uses what's called a short code. So right here, it starts with button, says link, and then it has some text in the middle of that. This is a button, and then this is a button. I'm going to show you a little bit more about this in just a moment in a new page. And I'm actually going to switch over to a new test page now. I'm not going to save any changes that I made, so I'm simply just going to navigate away. That's actually what causes this error up here. If you're making changes, please update it as you go, or if it's a draft, it's going to say save draft. Please make sure you do that so that you do not lose your changes. I'm going to go back to pages because I don't care about anything that I just did on that. And I'm going to click add new page. This will say, I'll call it test page. I think I've already got a couple of them. And then I'll click down to this editor section and start adding headings. Heading 2, heading 3. I'll type, this is a test paragraph. I'm going to highlight what I want to be a heading, make it an H2. I'll highlight my other heading, make that an H3. I'm going to copy and paste some of this paragraph text just to give you an idea as to how this will work. And then I'll show you a preview again of what this is going to look like on the front end for a user. And so there's my heading, my text, all right there. So far it looks exactly as I anticipated it would. Let's go and add a button. I'm going to click this add a button icon. It's going to give you a pop-up and you have to give it a title and a link. The title just means what the button says. So I'll say test button because that's all I can come up with right now. And then the link will be a link to somewhere on the site. So I'm going to pretend I want it to go to the images page. I'm going to copy this link address, paste that in there. Unless you have it memorized, you can just type it in. And because now I know what page I want it to go to, I'll just do view images. If this were to be going to an external link like google.com, click to open that in a new window. That would be because any external link you want in a new window and you want to be able to keep them in the current window on your website. In this case, it's an internal link. I'm going to uncheck that and click OK. Here is that short code I referenced previously in the buttons page. It's just telling me this is the button, this is the link it's going to, and this is the text that it has. So let's say I forgot to add a word here. You can simply click in here and add that text. But I do recommend trying to get it right when you're just adding the button because it could be easy to accidentally delete a part of the short code that's needed for it to show on the front end of the site. And if you rather just click to delete that and add a new one in, that's just fine too. Now that I added in the button, I'll hit preview. and it's going to produce that button below that paragraph text that I just put in there. And there's my button. What's likely going to be more common than adding a button for you may be adding a link. So let's just say this second sentence was telling me to go to another page. I can click this insert edit link button. And here it says paste a URL or type to search. That just means you can either type or paste in a URL like the one that I previously copied, or if you search for a page title that already exists on your site, like I'll type in images, and that will produce pages that have that word in it. And so the very first one that shows says it's the images page. I can just click that and it will automatically pull in that full URL, which can be very handy. And then I can either click enter or the apply button. And now it's a link. If I made a mistake, I can click the edit button and adjust that URL. If this were be going to, let's say if I did google.com, I would then click this link options button and then click the open link in new tab and hit update. And that's to make sure that because it's an external link, they're going in a new tab. Let's say I created a link and I don't want it anymore. You could delete this whole sentence, but rather than doing that, I'm just going to click this remove link icon. And now it's no longer styled as a link and there's no longer the link code there. You may have accordions on your website. What that means is it's going to look like a button and you can click on it and it will drop down more information about that title that the person clicked on. A lot of times these are called FAQs or frequently asked questions. A lot of people will have those on those types of pages. So I'll create that and then show you what that looks like. If you click add an accordion, it's going to say title. This is the text that shows in the accordion. So I'm going to do test accordion. And then below that, it says add your content here. This is the text that's going to show when they click to open that accordion. I'm just going to leave it as this basic add your content here and click OK. Again, it produces a short code. It's just saying this is an accordion. This is the title of the accordion, and this is the content within it. As with a button, you can edit it here, but it may be easier to just create a brand new one if you missed something. I'm going to click preview. And then it's going to produce that accordion on the front end to make sure that it looks exactly like I want it to. And so here's the test accordion. For us on our site, we've got a little plus sign icon. You can click anywhere in the accordion, it drops down and shows you that additional content. So, and there's also an X to close it. Depending on your site, it's going to be styled differently, but this would be a good way to create FAQs or answer questions when there's a lot of content and you need to kind of shorten that up. If you don't want either of those things in here anymore, the button or the accordion, you can just highlight and delete them if you want. I'll leave them in place for now. I should mention that when you're creating a new page, a lot of times people will paste content in from a Word doc. When you're doing that, if you're just copying over and pasting, it could be pulling over some hidden code that you can't see, but it is putting it into the platform so that when you look at it on the front end, it looks kind of wonky and things aren't coming through the way that they should. So for that reason, before you paste, click this paste as text icon, and then you can paste. What that's doing is going to be stripping out any styling that came over from the Word document, and then you can start over fresh in your WordPress site to make sure that it all comes out the way you want it to look. There's a few more things in this little editor section with these buttons that I'd like to show you. And one is a horizontal line. You will likely have that option on your site to help break up the content. In this case, it's just a gray line for us. I'll hit preview, and then it will just show you that it's kind of separating the top half of the page from the bottom half with this gray line. Another thing is that you can undo. So you can do Control or Command Z, just like you would in another document to undo, or you can click this undo button. If you say you accidentally clicked undo, you can click redo. Do not recall how many times it allows you to undo. Wouldn't rely on that by any means because there's only a certain number of times it allows you to undo, but it is there if you make a quick mistake and rather than trying to delete things and start from scratch, you can click the undo button a few times. Again, remember to hit the save draft button, and I'll show you how to do that now. So if I had created this much content, I certainly would want to click save draft by now. I'm just going to click the save draft button on the top right-hand corner. And it actually is automatically saving for me right now. That's why it went away. And you can see state draft saved, but I also would not ever rely on it automatically saving a draft. Manually click the save draft button just to be safe. It will take a little bit, it will turn gray. And when it's done, it will turn into its original colors. There's also the option to add a form and add media to your page. I'm going to return and I'm going to add an image. I'm going to click add media. And here is a bunch of photos that are on this sample website that we have. Let's say we wanted to add in the photo of this dog here. If we click on a photo, it will show the file name, when it was added, the size, if you want to delete it. In this case, the one thing I want to make sure that you try to get yourself into doing each time is adding alt text. For example, alt text is just a short and concise description that you want to give an image in case the image doesn't load, or accessibility issues, and for SEO. So in this case, black and white dog outdoors is sufficient. Really, you just want to give it a short description so someone that can't see the image knows what's going on here. Now I'm going to click the blue insert into page button. And here's the photo. If I wanted to align it differently, it gives me the options to align right, to align center, and so on. I'm going to align center or no alignment, so it goes right beneath this content here. If I wanted to make a change to this image, I can click the edit button. And then that's how I can adjust the alt text if I need to. If there's a caption that I wanted to add below it, like I know that this is Milo by a picnic table. Not very exciting caption, but just for the sake of testing, I'll give you that. And then you can also change the size. So you're going to have a default thumbnail, medium, or full size. I'll say in this case, I actually want it to be full size. And you can do custom as well. You click custom size and just edit the width. I recommend trying to stick with medium and full size or thumbnail because these are pre-programmed to be a specific size for your site. And if you keep them like this, it'll keep your website looking nice and all similar to each other. So I'm going to click full size. You can choose to link it somewhere. Right now, I'm going to link it to none. But if you had surrounding context around this image, and let's say that there was a link in the content, you could also link this image. And then I'll click update, and it even updated the size right here in the back of the editor. I'll click preview so you can see that it's changing on the front end and get an idea of how this works. So there's the image of Milo, and here's the caption that's below. I'll go back here. Let's say I didn't actually want this photo. I can simply click on the photo and click the backspace or delete button, or I can just click this X to remove. I'm going to try one more photo, and I'm going to choose this landscape. And I'm actually going to show you, I didn't scroll down when I added the first photo of the dog. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Those same things that I showed you when I clicked to edit the photo are available down here under attachment display settings. You can change the alignment, you can link it somewhere, and you can choose the size right away. So I'll just choose medium because the large is very large, and I'll insert it into the page. And there we go. As you can see, it came with a really long caption, and I would never give it too much content, but I'll leave it be for now. There's one more thing I want to show you on Pages, and that's adding a form. If you want to add a form, I'll click the Add Form button. It's going to give you a pop-up, and it says Select a Form. Would choose test form or whatever form name that you have already created. I'm going to uncheck display form title and description because really I want to write in my own stuff on this page. And then if there is a separate page it goes to for a thank you page, you do not need to select enable Ajax. But if it shows a message right in the same page after they hit submit, I would select this. It might be hard to remember, but what this is doing is making sure that it loads the page right in the same spot where the message is, so it doesn't reload at the top and then they have to scroll down to that thank you message. And then I'll click the insert form button. Again, we've got a short code. I'm actually going to get rid of this photo. And then I'll show you on the front end that that full form will show for you. It's just a short code, just like with the buttons and the accordions when you're adding it into the back end of the site. And so it was just a test form. It doesn't look nice, but this is the form field title. Different things that I'm selecting. This has some conditional logic to it, so it's opening extra fields when I click certain things, and the submit button. There is no way to edit the form from the pages section. We will get into that a little bit later. Because I'm done with my page, I would either click save draft or publish. I'll just save draft. Now I'd like to get into posts. Let's take a look at editing posts, and all you need to do is click on posts in the left-hand side menu. This looks almost identical to what you're going to see for pages. It has a whole list of all the page or posts, that exist on your site. You can search just like you can with pages in the top right-hand corner. And then a lot of these options are going to be the same too. You can edit by clicking on the link or clicking edit. You can trash and so on. You may see some new things like categories and tags that don't exist with pages, and we'll touch on that in a moment. And I do want to explain this draft part here. You will see the same thing for pages. If you've got a page or post drafted, it'll show you right away in this list here. So you can see these draft ones, nobody can see these, lots of test posts. And then anything that doesn't have draft by it, those are actually published. And you can also sort or filter through them by clicking published or draft on the top here. So if I just click drafts, it'll show me only the draft pages. I'll go back to all. And I'm going to add a new post. Although there are many test posts, let's just start fresh here. As you can see, this looks just like it does for pages. There are a few differences on the right-hand side, and we'll look at that, but everything over here, as far as the title and the editing of the post goes, those are identical. So I'll do test post heading or title. That'll produce a permalink URL for me very shortly. Here I can just do, actually going to copy some text over. Just so we have something in here. And like I said, there's no difference to how you edit a post to a page in this editor area. So this will all be the same. What I'd like to show you now on the right-hand side are the differences or the main differences for a post. One of the things is how you can publish. So this can really come in handy if, let's say, if today you had an hour that you could spend creating posts and you're not going to have time to do that for the rest of the month, but you don't want to publish all of these posts that you create on the same day. You can schedule them. So where it says publish immediately, just click edit. And I'm going to change this date to whatever I need it to be. So I can even go out to next month, say I want it to go on the 1st, oops, sorry, that's the 10th, the 1st of June. And I'll do, this is in military time, so I'll just say 8 o'clock in the morning. Click OK, and it will tell you you've got it scheduled for June 1st, 2024 at 8 o'clock. And then just click the blue schedule button. So when it's scheduled, that does not mean that it's published because it's going to hold that until the 1st of June at 8, and it will automatically publish that for you. So that can be a really handy tool. Below that, we've got categories and we've got tags. So with categories, it depends on your site. You may or may not have categories to choose from. I would recommend sticking with the categories that you have, unless you're going to create a lot of content and you have more categories that are going to be more specific to create. But try to keep them as concise as possible. Try not to create a whole bunch of extra ones if you don't need them. And ultimately, it would be ideal if you could keep it to just a few categories. Think of those as maybe like folders, the main folders of your blog. You can just click them to check them, and it will automatically save them when you click schedule or publish. If you need to add a new one, you can click this add new category option. New category, you can just type in the name of it. You want it to be a parent category, and click add new category. Then below that is going to be the tags section. It looks like we're not using tags on this website, and many websites don't, but yours might. Again, try not to use too many tags. It's really just to help categorize even further the content that you're writing about. I would recommend, again, using just the ones that already exist, or being very stingy, I guess, for the lack of better words, with your tags. But one last thing that's going to be different between a post and a page are the featured images. Let me close up category and the tag. So here is what's going to show on the blog archive, and it could also show on your blog page depending on how your site is styled. If I go to our blog, you can see that this logo here, these images, these are what's called featured images. It's what's showing as the main image of that post. So I'm going to go back, click set featured image, choose Milo, the dog, and click set featured image at the bottom. And there he is. So then when that's published, that's going to show up on the right-hand side on our site and next to your post that publishes. There's going to be a recommended size for your featured image, and it's all going to depend on your site. Remember the dashboard that I showed you earlier? I'm going to open that in a new tab. It reminds you where you can find that. It should tell you under ideal image sizes, instead of just saying homepage slideshow image, it'll likely say blog post featured image, and then it will tell you the exact size that that recommended image size is. Once you're done, just make sure to hit schedule, or I'll undo this schedule. So it says publish immediately, and then you would hit publish. I'll just save it as a draft for now. Next, I'll show you how to use the media library. You can get here by clicking on media in the menu on the left-hand side. It will likely show you a large grid of photos, but you can also view it in a list view by clicking this icon on the very far left. I'm going to go back to the photo grid. In the media library, you can view all the photos that you've uploaded to your site, as well as PDFs. You can click to preview each of them. So I just clicked on the photo of Milo. You can see details on the right-hand side about the file name and the dimensions, as well as alt text. Can get the file URL if I want to just go straight to that image. And then I can also delete from here if I want. Be careful when you're deleting, because if the image still exists on a page and you delete it from the media library, that's going to show a broken image icon on the front end of your site, and you don't want that. So just make sure that you absolutely are not using a photo anymore before you delete it. Then you can cycle through each of these photos if you want by clicking the next, the forward, and the back icons. And then to get out of here, just click the X. If you want to bulk select and delete, you sure can by clicking the bulk select button and then clicking multiple items. Again, make sure you absolutely no longer need these photos before you permanently delete them by clicking the delete permanently button. I'll click cancel. One more thing that's important is uploading new photos, and you can do that either in this media library here or when you're adding a photo to a page like we did on pages and posts. So I'm just going to click from my desktop and I'm going to drag it and drop it to upload. You can see it's uploading here. Here's my photo. And right away, it's best practice to just give an alt text and I will say Vivid Image Team. That way, going forward, for pages that I put this on, it will come along with this alt text. Do keep in mind, if this photo was already used and it had alt text and I changed it here, it will not dynamically update it on the pages that this already exists on. Would have to go into those specific pages and change the alt text there. I'll just close out of this. I'm going to go into pages. And I am going to show you how to edit or add a new image from a page itself. So I'm going to return, add media. This is also the media library that you've seen before. I'm going to click and drag this photo. It actually already exists, so I'm adding a duplicate one, but it works the same way it does in the media library itself. And I'll add some text. And then click Insert into Page. Next, I'll show you how to edit your menu. You may need to edit your menu if you need to change what a menu item says, like what the title of it is, if you need to adjust a URL of a menu item, or maybe you created a brand new page that needs to be added. You can do this by going to Appearance and then going to Menus. You will likely have just one, maybe two navigations. In this case, I'm just going to quick check and show you how to check. It says select a menu to edit. It says main nav. That's just our main navigation. I could click secondary nav and click select. And then it's going to produce a different result here. And this is likely what's either in the very top part of our site or in the footer. So it looks like this is the very top menu and it's called secondary menu. And then this is the primary main navigation that we're going to work with. I'm going to go back to main nav, click select. And so left-hand side is how you can add things to the menu. And this menu structure is the current way that the menu appears. So it's going to look vertical here, but most often on your site, it really is going to be horizontal. So for people that are very visual, that might be a little confusing, but we'll go through that together. So as you can see, images is a main menu. And then everything that's indented a little bit is called a submenu item. So the very first item is images, and everything that was indented is appearing here below it. And those are those submenu items. And as you can see, the next main menu item is WordPress, plugins, and comparing it to the front end, we've got WordPress and plugins. So it's going in that exact order. As you can see, this is a very large menu. Yours may not be this large. It may not have so many pages. You can click and drag anything you want here. So let's say that I need to move this basic image browser gallery up. You can click and drag and it will appear now below, or sorry, above the photo galleries immediately as the first submenu item. I'm just going to click and drag that back down. If you don't like clicking and dragging, you can open this up like an accordion and it's going to give you extra details. It's going to say move, and you can click a link for up one, or down one. And as you can see, it's moving it around. So if you don't like clicking and dragging, it doesn't work quite right for you, that's how you can move that around. Now let's say I need to add a new page to this menu. By default, it will show you the most recent pages you've accessed. So if it's a brand new page, chances are it'll probably show up over here. If, let's say, sample form was the page I created, you can simply click on that and click add to menu. If it doesn't appear here, you can do view all, or you can do a search for like the page title. I'm going to go back to view most recent, click sample form page, click add to menu. This is going to add it to the very bottom every single time. So you have to choose where you want it to go. Otherwise, it's going to throw it at the end. So if I want it to just be a submenu item of contact, I'm just going to click and drag inward. And now it's going to be a submenu item. I'll pull it back out to be its own parent menu item. Keep in mind though, when you're adding new menu items, especially if it's a new parent menu item, as in the main menu items here, you only have a certain amount of space for those to live. So if I were to add even 3 more pages here, they may not fit. So if you have a lot of pages you need added to your menu, I would maybe reach out to Vivid Image and talk to them about what you're wanting to do here. Otherwise, you should have a little bit more space in the submenu item area. I'm going to open this up and remove that. So if you accidentally add something, you can quickly remove it from the menu. It doesn't delete the page, just from the menu structure. Now, when you're done, make sure that you click the blue Save Menu button. If you don't do that, it will not save any of your changes. There is also an option to add posts or custom links. Very rarely will you ever want to add a post. And sometimes you'll need a custom link if there's like maybe a third-party payment processor or something that you need to add a link to. You can type in that URL, give it a title. I'll just do Google. And then add to menu. Just like a regular menu item. I'll go ahead and open that up and remove it. Now we will talk about the forms and editing your forms. You can access that by simply clicking the forms link on the left-hand side. And here it's going to give you a list of all the forms that exist on your site. This inactive and active are just showing you whether or not it can be viewed on the front end. Active means people can see it. Inactive means it cannot. If a form's inactive, that can be useful if it's like an old form that you've used in the past and you still want the information all here in the site, but you just don't want anybody to be able to use it. Just click the button from active to inactive, and then that'll do the trick. So they'll no longer be able to see that on a page. Each one of these can be accessed just like a page. You can either click on the title or click edit. It'll show you what number of entries there are for that form. Here we've only got a max of 1 on employment application and test form. You can see how many times it was viewed and so on. I'm going to, let's say that I want to see the entries for the donut order form. In this case, there's no entries there, but just so I can show you, you can hover over that and click entries. And that's going to bring you into a list of all the submission entries that have ever occurred. So even if you've got notifications set up to go to your email, you can always view them here. I'm going to go back to the main form page by clicking forms. And let's say I want to edit this form. Actually, I'm going to go to test form instead. So I'll click into that. You saw this on one of our pages that we were testing. Here are all the fields that we have. If you're editing a form, this is what it'll look like. It'll have fields in there already for you. If you start a new form, it'll just tell you to start adding in new fields. So let's say all I wanted to do was edit what the title was. I would just click on this form field, change this field label on the right-hand side to select one update. That's a poor field title name, but just for the sake of testing, that's what I'll set it to. And if that's all you wanted to do, you can just click Save Form, and it will save that edit for you. You can also do the same thing like you can with Pages and Posts, where you click Preview, and it will show you what that looks like on the front end. Keep in mind, though, there's going to be a little bit of discrepancy in some cases. Like this one didn't say select one with my edit. I'd have to publish this one. There's certain things you can see and certain things you can't with this, but it's still a good tool to use if you're adding a brand new form field. You'll see that there's a lot of other items that I can edit here. One thing that's common is maybe you decided that this required conditional logic field doesn't need to be required anymore. You would click on that, and where it says required, just uncheck that. And you'll see it removes that red asterisk, which means that it's required. If you are looking at a form that you've been using for some time and people have submitted entries to it and you want to delete a field, I would actually strongly recommend you do not do that, because when you delete that field, you're deleting entries, previous field entries that have occurred with that. So rather than deleting, you could duplicate a form and just get rid of the field that way. Or if you go to advanced, this advanced icon here, click hidden or administrative. That way, nobody on the front end can see it and they don't have to fill it out. It's just better than deleting that submission altogether. If you wanted to delete it though, there is this delete icon, and that would work if it was a brand new form. On the top here, you can see settings, entries. There's different ways to access some other form settings that you might need. And then on the right-hand side, there's more field settings or more fields that you can add. So let's say I wanted to add a new, let's go with radio buttons. This means they can choose one item. I'm going to click on that I pulled over. I clicked and dragged, give it a label, radio button field. And then I'm also going to say that it is next. I'm going to show you how to edit forms on your website. Not just adding them to a page, but actually adding in new fields and editing what you have. So you can access that by, on the left-hand side, just clicking Forms. And here you will see a list of form titles, just like you do with pages and posts. You can access them the same way by clicking the title in the blue link or clicking Edit. Next to that, you'll see active or inactive. Inactive just means that you can't see it on the front end. Active means that you can when you add it to a page. You'll see a couple columns. One important one is entries. It'll say how many entries there were on that form, and you can simply click that and it will bring you into the list of all the entries that that form has. This one has 0, but let's just go in so you can see what that looks like. If people had submitted this form, you would see their first name, last name, the date they submitted it, the time, their email, and you can customize that to pull in more information. Even if you have form submissions going to your email, this is always a good fallback, and I recommend checking this every so often just to make sure you've seen all the entries that have come through. You can also have the option to export those entries, which I can't show you on this one, but if there were submissions here, we'd be able to do that. I'll go back to forms. And so if you ever needed to get rid of a form, you can trash it. If you don't have a lot of forms on your site, it's probably better just to mark it as inactive and then leave it there, because once you delete a form that has submissions, it takes the submissions away with it. So I would recommend just leaving that in place, then maybe asking Vivid Images recommendations if you're not sure. So I'm going to show you that there are multiple ways, again, to get somewhere. If I hover over settings here, I can go into the form settings, I can go into the confirmations and the notifications, but I can also get there if I actually hop into the form itself by clicking on the title. And then on the top of the page, I've got access to all those settings and the entries from there as well. You can also switch between forms by using this top left-hand corner drop-down. So this donut order form has accidentally clicked on a link, so I'm going to go back. Has a variety of different fields on it. As you can see, some say required. Let's say that's all I wanted to do was unrequire the email field. You can just click on that field, and where it says required, just uncheck that, and it will remove the requirement for that to be filled out. Let's say you needed to change the name of this field. And above that, where it says field label, you can just say email address, and then that will update for you. If you need to move things around, you can click on those three dots and just move that to the area where you want it to be. It also gives you the option to delete a field. Would use that with caution. You can certainly use that on a form that's never been submitted before. There's no issue with that. If this form's been live for a couple months and people have been submitting form entries to you, don't click delete, because once you do that, it actually also takes away that part of the previous submissions. So if you needed to get rid of a field that's existed for a while, would actually recommend either recreating that form, cloning that form and making edits, or even what you could do is once you click on that field, if you go to advanced, you can choose hidden. And then I'm just also going to mark it as not required. It's hidden. Nobody's going to be able to see it on the front end. People can still submit the form. The easiest and maybe cleanest, though, if you don't have to make a lot of updates very often to forms, is just duplicating that form or starting over. You can also add in new fields. So on the right-hand side here, let's just say I wanted to add in checkboxes because that's going to allow them to choose more than one option. That will load in here. I'm going to give that a title. So I'll go to general. This will say check box items. You can give it a description if you want. And then below this, it's going to tell you what you can choose for those items. So it's just this first choice, second choice, third choice. You can change what it says. I'll just put test in every one of them so you can see it change along with me. And then once you're done with those changes, you would just want to make sure to click Save Form at the top right-hand corner. You can add many fields to your form. Most of them that you're going to use are going to be in standard fields or advanced fields. So like the name, date, time, those live under advanced. Standard fields would be like if you want a kind of like a blank field that you can add in anything you want and they can just type in an answer for you. But please stay away from using the post fields or even the pricing fields. Post fields you should never use. Again, once you're done, just click Save Form. I'm going to go back to the form page. So let's say I did want to duplicate this form. Really, all you would need to do is click this duplicate item. If your website allows for that, if I click duplicate, it will just put a number 1 after that form title so you know what the new one is. And then I would deactivate the old one. I'm going to turn that back on, show you how to delete this one. I'm just going to click trash. And then it moves it into the trash. And it will actually live in the trash until you permanently delete it. If you go to trash, you can click next to it and click delete permanently. Yep, I want to delete that. Never been used. And then we're done. A couple more things you need to know about forms, and that's the confirmation and notification area. Confirmations is what it's going to show the user after they submit the form. This says default confirmation. It says it's text, and then it gives you the content. So if I just click into the default confirmation, it's going to say I can leave it as text, and that means it's just going to produce this content on the page for them. Or I can choose page and select a specific thank you page if I had that set up. Most often, people leave it as text and just customize what is shown here. It looks just like a regular page or post editor, and then click Save Confirmation. The other item you need to know about is the notifications. There will be one admin notification, and it will tell you what the subject is, and that's what gets sent to you. If you click into admin notification, you can change who it's sending to, which is probably the most frequently done task that people need to do with forms. editing the notifications. So this send to email is just going to the admin, but let's say if I wanted to go to myself and I wanted it to go to somebody else on our team, I'll just type in their email address, followed by, or proceeding, comma, and then it will send to both of us. At the bottom, you can adjust what fields show. And I would recommend just leaving it as all fields. It will pull in all the form submission fields there. And then when you're done, you can click update notification. Now that we've covered everything from pages, posts, media library, forms, and the menu, that concludes what I was hoping to cover today. As a reminder, there is the dashboard that you can always go back to, which gives you a list of items that you may need help with, where you can click a link to go to tutorials. Got some quick tips for you, some styling tips, and we'll likely also have some image size recommendations for you. Otherwise, as always, reach out to us at Vivid Image and we'll be happy to help you. Thanks so much.